the old school Jesus videos. Yeah, they were great. Anyway, hey, welcome to the Outlaw Radio Show. My name is Zach Adams, and I pastor a church located just outside of Athens, Georgia. The name of the church is Calvary 316. If you're local, come hang out with us one Sunday morning. Our service is at 10:30. If you're not local but looking for a church, you can attend online, digitally, virtually. We do live stream our service. Our YouTube channel is Calvary316.live. We also stream on Facebook, facebook.com/Calvary316. You can learn all about the church by just going to Calvary316.com. I'm joined in studio by the man that needs no introduction, the maestro of this dysfunction, dastardly, Creighton Vaughn. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing well. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Outlaw Radio Show where nothing goes weird and everything works the way it's supposed to.
So you've said that like you're going to rock a hat for a while because you're going to grow your hair out.
I have said that, yes.
You're going to actually grow. So I remember when you had like a long ponytail, and it was pretty crazy looking.
Well, yeah, I was also
is that what you're going to go for?
So I haven't decided how long I'm going to go. The last time I had long hair was in high school, and I did not take care of it because I was in high school.
Yeah.
So my goal this time is to get long hair again and then take care of it. I'm thinking at least shoulder length. I don't know yet, though. There's still the chance that at some point I'm going to be sitting at work because I work from home, and I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to go, nope, and I'm going to shave my head. Like that's
a strong possibility.
There's still a possibility that's going to happen, but I'm going to do my best.
You're going to do your best.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, we're also joined in studio by Spice Daddy. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. I've been enjoying your sermons, specifically the reactions of the audience or the.
You gotta give the audience, our audience,
yeah.
An understanding of what you're referring to.
So Zach's been going through a sermon series on the Song of Solomon,
verse by verse,
and it has been interesting. Nevertheless, mainly it's hard to pay attention to the sermon when I'm so busy watching the people listening to the sermon. Because you never know what you're going to say. I know it's going to be good, and their reactions are great. And as far as Creighton having a ponytail, if he has a ponytail, I will not be able to trust him. Because one of my rules in life is never trust a man with a ponytail.
Chad Mosley rocks a ponytail.
Only exceptions maybe awesome. Chad Mosley, right? But even then, it's a little.
It depends on if he has a pony. If his hair is long and flowing, okay.
But if you ponytail
it, instant non-trust.
Man bun, you got to pass.
No, well, hey,
no, man bun's just a hidden ponytail.
So the audience heard the next voice. Next voice, we've got Isaac. We came up with a name. What was the name for
Football Mom?
Football Mom. Yeah, Football Mom in the house. We're kind of working on a different angle for Football Mom. We're experimenting around with some different lighting and etc. I like this angle. I'm kind of a fan of that. What do you think, Creighton? You like it?
I like it. I think it's great. I like how you can see Spice Daddy and Football Mom at the same time.
Yeah. So
2 for the price of 1. And honestly, Dexter, I didn't really like Football Mom's a name I can be proud of.
Football Mom is, I think it better reflects your spirit for sure.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, just in case you're well, if good grief, I don't know if we've said this at all. So the way the studio is crafted. So I've got a studio in my house that we built out. It was my office way before it was a studio. And so I'm sitting here, I'm looking, at you guys, the audience. But if I'm panning counterclockwise and I go to here, I'm looking directly at Creighton. So Creighton is, let's say, if this is 12, Creighton is what? I'd say maybe 10:30? No, like 11 o'clock?
I can't tell from your clock. I don't know how to do that math.
It's like a 10:30 here. And then if I keep working my way around the room, I'll go over, and then I get to, so we've got Football Mom, and then behind Football Mom is a gigantic monitor that has everything. So Creighton's on the mixer, he's switching camera angles, but we've got a big TV that mirrors that screen so that I can see, what we're putting actually on the air. And so Isaac is now kind of in front of that monitor. And then if I move, I would say, I guess, to 9 o'clock, I get to Spice Daddy. And then if we move just a click over, There's the couch, which Spice Daddy was on,
I miss that couch.
which is now set up for audience members, and directly in front of me is the audience chair. And so it's kind of like just the layout of the studio. Built this out of my garage, so it's a short ceiling because my garage door still goes up and down, and but it's pretty cozy. A lot of cedar wood, leather.
That was great. And
Yeah.
if anybody in the audience missed that description, Creighton has some super fancy secret squirrel software that he can make a drawing out of, just so you guys get the full picture.
I don't have that.
The full picture. Well, maybe Justin, you guys
MS Paint.
take a screenshot or two just of the room at some point.
They can go back and look at the promo photos you put on a lot of the episodes, and it kind of shows.
Well, that's true. That does show some of it. So we need to get some more pictures, and so that's kind of the layout, the structure, and it's great because I can see the whole room. You guys can see me. It's a nice setup. We wish that we could move this camera, theoretically, a little bit further over to give, because I look this way. So the reason I look to the left, my left, your right, is that this is where these guys are. I look this way, it's a wall. And so if I look forward, I don't see them. So I pivot most of the time to the left because I'm talking to these guys and I want to see them. It would be nice to move this camera a little bit this direction, but then that plays with a whole lot of other stuff within the room. And we just haven't really perfected that, I would say.
Also,
Everything's a work in progress.
Yeah.
the BB gun would be in the shot, and that would probably get this video
It's a
demonetized.
It's a 14 gauge shotgun, actually.
It looks like a little rider.
It's a 14 gauge shotgun. That was my great grandfather's.
410.
It's a 14 gauge. No, it's an actual old 14 gauge.
14?
It's a 14 gauge. I got shotgun shells over there for it.
Oh,
It's bizarre.
I never noticed it when I was cleaning it up a little bit for you, but
It's bizarre. It's a 14 gauge shotgun, which is
it's
strange. Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't shoot that thing at this point. So you remember when we actually took it out? I had gotten it from my grandfather, and we went to we do a men's event we call Eat, Pray, Shoot. It's basically a men's prayer breakfast with guns, and so
It's a
we
militia
eat,
prayer breakfast.
we eat, we pray, and then we shoot guns. And I took that shotgun once. I had never fired it. I was a little afraid of it. And this old guy was like, "Give me that thing!" And he walked behind a pine tree and shot just in case. He was like, "If it blows my hand off, whatever." And he shot it, and it worked. Did I ever tell you the story? The only time I've had to
Yes, you have.
so this was you guys have never heard this story. So I was at my old house, and our dog, her name was Kaya, and she never barked at anything. She was a blue Shar-Pei, the most docile, laid back. Shar-Peis are supposed to be guard dogs, worst guard dog on the planet. And so one night, middle of the night, I woke up and she was barking, which was bizarre. Never. I mean, Creighton, you knew Kaya. She would never bark.
Never.
And it was like the middle of the night. And so our master was on the second floor. And so I go out of the bedroom. I kind of look down the hallway. And Kaya is at the top of the stairs. I mean, bowed up. Barking, growling, bowed up. So Quincy was in the guest bedroom. Jessica was, so I grabbed my shotgun. Loaded it, made as much noise as I could cocking that thing. Jess grabbed Quincy, went to our room. And so I went. And I said, "Kaya, get back." And so I kind of like Jack Bowered my way, down the stairs, there's going to be action. I mean, Kaya would not be barking. Well, I get to like the bottom of the stairs and I turn, and it's kind of comical. So earlier that day, Jessica and Quincy had gone to Chick-fil-A, and Quincy had gotten a balloon. And I guess at some point, the balloon had been in the kitchen, and it had kind of deflated enough that it was like head level, like 6 foot, and then it had floated down the hallway to the front door. And we had these French doors were our front door, which was terrible, and it was just hovering. So Kaya had thought, because it looked like someone was at the door, and so I see the balloon. For measure's sake, I have to sweep the premises.
I thought you were going to say you shot it.
No, I didn't. That would have been
sense.
well. So I get done. We're in the clear. I go back upstairs, and then it dawns on me like I've cocked this shotgun, and I can't uncock it.
Is that right? That one?
Yes. Now there is a way to do it, but I've shot this gun like once, and I'm like I'm not gonna blow a hole in the wall or the floor, and so this cocked loaded shotgun, I took to the closet, I put it down, put it in the corner, put some clothes around it. Didn't want like little Quincy, locked the door, and then that day I was like I got to do something with the shotgun. So we had woods behind our house, and so just like middle of the day, you know, I just walked by the fence, boom, right into the ground, just walked right back in, picked up the shells. And was like, yeah, we're good. I didn't have to really worry. The neighborhood we lived in, there were gun, you know, it was not abnormal to hear gunshots.
Mostly gang related.
Yeah, mostly gang related. A real hard part of Snellville, you know, we lived in. Anyway, so.
Just got to pull the trigger as you're holding the hand.
Yeah. There's a way
Like
to
a
do
revolver?
it. There's a way to do it. I just wasn't confident enough. So yeah,
I've seen
my
lots
shotgun
of
story.
videos on the internet of people going to uncock revolvers and their finger slips somewhere and just blowing a hole in their, you know, sometimes in their hand because they're stupid and they uncock their gun like that.
So we the way the show works is this is a live stream show, Outlaw Radio Show, 8:00 Wednesday nights. We podcast the audio of the show on Apple, Google, Spotify, really wherever you get your podcasting. That drops on Thursday. What's great is we can interact in real time with the audience. There are several ways that you can interact with us in the moment. There's really two fundamental ways. You can comment in the comment sections of the live stream. So we're streaming on our YouTube channel, which is outlawradio.live. And then we're also streaming on facebook.com/The Radio Outlaw, which is our Facebook page.
Speaking of which, everyone say, hey, Miss Ann. She
Hello,
says,
Miss Ann.
good evening, gents. Hey, Miss Ann.
Fantastic. So you can drop a comment on those threads. Creighton is monitoring those, and just like he did, to the best of his ability, we'll interject those greetings, salutations, questions, comments, whatnot. The other way that you can is I have my phone right here, and our Google number, our church number is 678-883-3316, 678-883-3316 is the number, and I've got I'm monitoring it. So in real time, you could text a question or a comment, or like this past week, you can text whenever you're listening. So on Friday at 5 a.m., we got a text message that said, "Hey, 15 minutes into episode 247 was super helpful. I'm blessed to be able to co-lead a boys group. Our topic is pictures of discipleship through Matthew." And so kind of commenting, again, was listening, I guess, to the podcast or watching at 5 a.m., probably on the way to work. Heard the number, dropped a text. So you can do that. And then also our email address, which we get a lot of wonderful traction on, is popecreighton@gmail.com.
Great
Again,
email address.
popecreighton@gmail.com. So I know we've got a question. I believe Isaac, football mom, has a question. Before we do that, though, and this is not like I don't want to preempt this with like some long conversation, but I did have a thought today.
I don't want to preempt this with some
2
long
hours
conversation,
later.
but
Yeah, so I am I've always been a big believer in spaces, environment. Creighton, as long as you've known me, you know, I've always kind of placed premium on there's something about an environment, a space that fosters creativity. I've talked about, you know, I've built out an office. This is my Bible study nook. When I was doing Outlaw Radio on my own, I had to find another space, and I had to find something creative. So I went to a local restaurant known as Bistro. I've always been like the first when I graduated from Bible college, we came back and we started the Strand. The first week, we went in and just totally changed the setup. We created a really cool vibe, low lights, couches, lava
we
lamps.
tore down a wall.
well, that was the middle school group. That was 6-7 months later. But like even our youth ministry, we always had a cool look. We were always on a budget, so we had to kind of employ, it was measured in what we could spend. But I think we always did a pretty good job of creating a cool, worshipful, friendly, fun vibe. When we were doing the youth conferences, we kind of did the same thing. Even when we would go do a youth camp, we'd take our kids down to Laguna Beach, and it's like this sterile classroom, which is where we're supposed to have our Bible studies. Well, what did we do? We hung a curtain across the back. We brought these poles, hung our own lighting, brought TVs. Everywhere we went, because there's something about an environment that I think it encourages certain things. My preference is low light and like a worship setting. One of the things that I don't really like about Calvary Chapel, Philadelphia, as an example, which they have the East Coast Pastors Conference is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but like, it's very sterile. Like, there's very little technology in the room. The lights are bright. It's kind of like, we don't need this to worship God. And like, I get the sentiment. I understand kind of that perspective. But I am, there's an environment in heaven. There's an aesthetic to heaven. You study heaven. The worship scene of heaven is pretty radical. I say all that to say, and I'm kind of hedging myself here. So I was at the gym today, and the way that my gym is structured is on the floor. So you walk in, the bottom floor, it's this massive room, and it's got all the free weights, the weight machines, the whole back wall, the side wall, it's all glass. They have TVs all over the place, and then like the center of the room, there's like a TV hanging circular thing, in the center. But for myself, if you want to do cardio, none of that's on the bottom floor. You have to go up the stairs to the second floor, which is kind of a balcony. Like it doesn't cover the whole building. It's
mezzanine.
A mezzanine. It's like half of it. And the treadmills, so you have the whole bottom floor, and the treadmills are on the second level facing the bottom floor. So you're able, from the treadmill, you see the entire place. You see, like, from people walking in the front door to wherever they go on the bottom floor, you get the full, like, what's under you is the bathrooms, kind of the spa, the sauna, whatever, those type of things are under you. So you get a full look of the gym. Great place for people watching. I mean, the two best places to watch people, I would say, is the airport. One, airport's fantastic, and then the gym. You get some interesting things. Anyway, so I'm sitting there today, and you got to realize, like, where I'm walking, directly across, there's all these televisions, and every TV. I won't say they're all like on different channels, but they're like blocks of channels, kind of like spread out. So you've got your normal like ESPN, you've got like a Fox News one, you've got like the time of day I go, you get the local Fox, and it's Portia, this black lady talk show, which is, again, you're not hearing it, but you get the subtitles. It's very comical. Well, today the screen like right across from me, it was different. And I caught myself at first. So like whatever the show was, like they had like the intro, and it was big, and like there was a stage, and it had all these LED screens, and there was lights, and I'm not kidding. This was funny. I was like, shoot, they're putting like a mega church on there. Like this is like Andy Stanley, or this is, I don't know what church this is, but this has to be some like pretty big. Like, because it had, this is Bethel, or maybe they got Hillsong on there. Like, I have no idea what it's about to be, because the aesthetic to the stage, the lighting, all of it is like what churches spend copious amounts of money to accomplish. Right? And then I saw what it was, and I started dying laughing. It was wrestling.
Like professional
WWE. WWE, whatever the wrestling was. And like they come out with smoke. The entire aesthetic of pro wrestling, I thought, was a Bethel service or Hillsong service or some big church service.
That's
So what I'm
hilarious.
hearing right now,
No, well, I know what you're about to say.
what I'm hearing
Absolutely
right
not.
now is we need a smoke machine
do.
and a walkout song for you when you step up.
No, that's the wrong takeaway from this conversation. But seriously, I had this thought, like, there's got to be something wrong with that. Like we're trying to emulate, like, modern churches are like, we're creating an aesthetic that more represents WWE wrestling than anything else. Like, literally, the LED screen structure that they had is almost identical to a church I won't name, but we all know. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, you could turn your sanctuary into World Wrestling because you've got all the technology for it. But, like, this is just kind of bizarre. And it really got me thinking. So this got me into, like, a whole deal.
Can we string up a ring on the stage and
See, you know, I appreciate Spice Daddy. You're on brand. You know, no is the answer.
you wouldn't want to see me and Creighton wrestling each other?
Absolutely not.
If it was mud wrestling, I would say yes.
That's where we went. And there were no camera movements to any of that, Creighton. So that was all on me that whole time.
Yeah, I know. I was
Yeah.
a little distracted.
Yeah. So here's the thought. Now just initial reaction, because I'm gonna go someplace with this. But, like, Creighton, did you see that coming?
So after you started to describe, like, the lights, and then you were like, it looked like it was about, I was like, oh, it's probably the Grammys, or I
You
didn't
could
think
understand
World
that if it was
Reference-
theatrical.
But absolutely, that's exactly what I thought. And my first reaction is kind of like, if you're doing all of that and are also putting on, like, a deep, meaty Bible study, cool. I think it's very interesting that I feel like I don't see that kind of setup and good theology together often.
Okay, let me let you guys jump in before I pivot this.
Yeah, so my thought is there's no problem with that at all, in my opinion, because if you take different pieces like worship, for instance, there's a reason why worship music sounds a lot like maybe pop music or just popular music today, because that's the sound that people connect with. And so, you know, I don't know, it would be kind of silly if we still played, you know, hymnals the whole thing. That's just not
No,
something-
I'm tracking with you. That's
Yeah.
definitely one of the arguments that's made.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's interesting. Spice Daddy, jump in.
I guess for me, it boils down to, is this a distraction or not? Because if they have like, we just got a new light system at 316. It's got a lot of functionality. Like, if you have somebody that God's given them the talent to design, like a light show or something like that, why not encourage them to use that creativity for that purpose? But at the same time, is what they're doing and producing a distraction to what the whole point of the church gathering is?
Listen, I think a wonderful addition to the conversation. I mean, you guys are hitting on I think very relevant perspectives on this particular topic. But let me take this a different direction for a second. And I don't really have a conclusion to this, by the way. I'm just kind of, this was my experience on the treadmill today. I think this probably was my I was listening to Joe Focht and Song of Solomon, and I think it's terrible because he takes an allegorical approach, and I want to talk to Joe about that. And I was like, and my mind just started going someplace else because it was like, you know, whatever. So if you go back historically, you know, the thing about the church, now we're not going to get into, like, we're not going to parse Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy or Protestantism. We're just going to take Big C Church, just the church. You know, the thing that has always been true is the church, when it came to art and aesthetics, was always distinct from culture and, in a large extent, groundbreaking. Most of and that you can make that case when it comes to academics. That's also true. Certain sciences, that's true. But like within art, a lot of art was done within the context of the church. The Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo, Leonardo. You know, you just go but you get back to the cathedrals. Like, cathedrals were works of art. I've had the chance to see a few, from Westminster Abbey in London to the big church in Cologne, Germany, which is one of the tallest church, I think, in the world. I was never able to go to Notre Dame, but you see these images. I saw on Twitter somebody showed I think it's St. Peter's Basilica, whatever the one is in Moscow or St. Petersburg. It's in Russia. At winter, and you're like, this is unbelievably beautiful. And this thing's been around for 1,000 years, you know, whatever. And you go in, and like the acoustics are naturally unbelievable. And the look, the stained glass. You know, that the church has always been on the forefront of art and creativity and aesthetic. There was nothing like churches for 1,000+ years. They were the biggest buildings. They had the best acoustics. It wasn't until probably what I would say the 1600s, Shakespeare, that you started getting actual. Well, you could go earlier. Rome had certain things, but like I'm just saying, like you got to a point that the church was determining a unique aesthetic. It was never trying to copy the world. The world was trying to copy the church. I think that there's something weird about the last 50, 60, 70 years or whatever, where there's been this flip to the church trying to copy the world as opposed to trying to set its own trend. Which gets into, like, again, what you're saying, Justin, of like, hey, you have someone that's creative, that has an artistic flair. Why copy the world? Like our lighting systems and the best, brightest churches around, with all of the money in the world that's spending tons of it, what do they look the most like? WWE. And it's like, okay, obviously very popular, but is that creative?
Do you think we lost that? And
you guys know what I'm saying. Let's just start there. Like, you guys kind of understand the direction I'm going. Like, I'm not trying to knock being modern. I think we should totally be. I just think we should be creative.
Do you think we lost that during the Puritan age, though, specifically in
Could be.
America, like where the Puritans was like nothing? It's all plain Jane.
We cut out aesthetic altogether.
Yeah, we cut out aesthetic, and I think like, and it would be around that time period that you're seeing this shift to where that, and I think now is just this backlash of, you know, Christians they're not trying to be, they're in the world, not of it, but that's also of it with doing the stuff. But I mean, it's kind of like we lost that ability to be creative, I guess, during the Puritan age.
I think that again, I don't have like a solid direction to this conversation. I think that that's a very interesting point, which I would encourage somebody in the audience, maybe you want to look into it, of just, you know, because there's not, the one thing that makes even Protestantism in America different than Protestantism in Europe is aesthetic.
Well,
you don't have too many old churches in America that stand to the test of time like you do in Europe.
a lot of those buildings were built over lifetimes.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that a big part of, and I completely agree with what you're saying, though maybe I differ on the conclusion,
Again, I don't have a conclusion, so
Well-
we're just kind of
well,
working
we're-
out an idea together.
Where you're going, I guess, back in the time period you're describing, when we're talking about, Big C Church, there was most of the population was involved in the church. A lot of the big artists were, they had ties to faith, where now less so. And, there, if you look at anything, actually, the aesthetic of any building lately, it's like kind of ugly.
That's true. Now
In
there's a point
comparison-
to just the aesthetic, the difference in aesthetic of like the 90s and 2000s to even 1910. Look at our train stations, right?
Yep.
Tucker Carlson talks a lot about
Beauty.
about beauty and just kind of the bastardization of like our government builds buildings to oppress people.
Yes.
But you also
There's nothing built with beauty.
But the thing
Right.
is, you also only see the beauty and the creativity in like the churches and stuff is in Europe almost solely, because when you go to the other parts of the world where Christianity is, the building's not a super big focus of the thing. It's that half the time they're going to get arrested and or killed if they you know what I'm saying.
Oh,
So
you bring up
it's-
a valid point, but what I would counter, and again, I don't want this to go the wrong way. I think you guys will know what I'm saying, but like let's even take a step back from Christianity. Religion in general, people that worship God, whether it's many gods or whatever, there's something about the downflow and the response. Like you look at like what are the most beautiful structures in the world? Within Hinduism, there's some beautiful buildings. Buddhism, beautiful buildings. Islam, beautiful buildings. Like there is again kind of an artistic expression that flows out of a theistic view of the world. And I think we can say that broadly. Now, obviously, these are cults. It's funny. There's a Capital One commercial. And I didn't think anybody had picked up on this at all. And we were New Year's Day, we were at my dad's house, my mom and dad's. We were watching football, and this commercial came on, and I started laughing. I was like, that is the dumbest thing. And my dad was like, did you see it? I said, no way. He had seen the same thing I did, and we laughed about it. So it's like this woman, this modern woman with short hair, and it's showing like all the places she's gone, all the places she's been. Have you seen it? You know what I'm talking about?
I saw pictures of it. I didn't see the actual.
Okay, I might have sent you a picture of it.
Maybe,
but
yeah.
this woman is walking out with short hair, modern dress, and it's obviously it's green screened, but it's the Dome of the Rock on the Temple Mount. First, she would never be allowed as a woman on the Temple Mount, not with a head covering. That woman walking out would have been stoned to death. And like Capital One thinks, we'll just throw this out there. Because they got the Taj Mahal, they've got this, that, and the other. And they're like, well, throw the Dome of the Rock out there. And it's like the most, you have no idea what world you live in, Capital One.
I think most of the Hollywood types don't know what they're talking about when it comes to any religion, much
Well,
less
that's true.
Christianity, so
Yeah.
or Judaism.
So I mean, and again, like, okay, I can make an argument that God's into space and aesthetic. I mean, God spends books of our Bible using painstaking detail of everything that he wanted crafted and created in the worship of the temple, the tabernacle, down to God was specific on what the priests were to wear, their attire, the utensils, how were they to be made. He even talks about like, you need to pick out the artisans. Like just nobody can do this. You got to pick out like the specialists, like the people that are like the highest craftsmen in metal or cloth or fabric to build this thing. Why? What is it a picture of? It's a picture of heaven. Tabernacle is a picture of the throne room of God. God was very particular, very specific. And then that carries over to the temple. There's something about space. There's something about aesthetic that is supposed to engage the worshiper, that's supposed to encourage the worshiper, inspire the worshiper. And historically, the church has always brought that in because there's always been a place to aesthetic. You can walk into certain churches and like there's a special thing to it. And all I'm saying is that isn't it weird that like the most modern, advanced, progressive churches in America are creating an aesthetic that WWE basically is doing? That fake wrestling, of all the things fake wrestling is doing.
Not fake.
Maybe
It's not fake. Yeah,
maybe
fake.
you have it backwards. Maybe wrestling understands what draws people in, similarly to church. You know, it's so they're the ones who actually are modeling it after church, perhaps.
So I mean, are you super comfortable with that?
I was
mean-
going to say that, I mean, that basically opens the door to the question of why are they running for that aesthetic?
Right.
Either of them, because
Well, let's be straight
if it
here,
works
most-
for, I mean, if it works for fake wrestling, because it is fake, and it works for,
Excuse me.
yeah, sorry, bud. It means that you're looking for spectacle.
Oh no.
But I
It
think
means that you're
Stand
looking
to
for,
him.
Right.
spectacle, and it is designed for spectacle.
I agree to an extent, but most churches nowadays are run like businesses rather than churches.
Okay. Let's parse. Let's like that can get into this. The conversation can de-evolve quickly
You
into.
started this.
I did
agree.
start this. No, I did start this. I don't want to go into the let's bash the seeker-friendly church movement and its motivation because we've done that. We've hammered. I think our position stands. I'm trying to actually take a different angle. That's different. Like I'm trying to evolve the conversation to a point where it's like more of a challenge.
I think
The challenge being, I think aesthetic is important. I think art is beautiful. I think the church historically has been on the forefront of it. I think as a church, and this is my heart for Calvary 316. You know, one of the things that we get constantly from now, visitors come and go, they don't always stay. But I will say, the number one thing I get from anybody that walks into Calvary 316 is it's warm and it's totally different than anything they've ever encountered.
We have a sweet vibe.
Like what we've created aesthetically. Now, I think that we're also distinct on how we present the gospel and how we worship, how we do some other things. But the aesthetic, the tables, the wood, the materials has all been thought out. It's all been contemplated in regards to how it would the effect would be carried forth. Like there's nothing about our building that wasn't thought through.
I think you've made a tactical error in the way that you presented this conversation, which might not have been avoided.
And again, we're kind of free. It's
But-
just free flow of consciousness here.
Like the way that I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I'm trying to think all of this through, and I'm having a hard time separating the things I dislike about the seeker-friendly church from the aesthetic that they have, because I think that if you were to ask any of them, they would say the same thing. They're every chair, the paint they use on the walls, how much smoke, which lights they have, all of those things they've thought through. And they have
No, for sure. Oh,
they
no,
would say
absolutely.
they would say absolutely everything is made for a purpose, and they have that purpose. I think that their purpose is the same as WWE, which is
Draw people
spectacle.
Draw people in, for
spectacle.
sure, 100%.
So I think that the answer to the question, in a lot of ways, is that our biggest churches are chasing the same spectacle, or
That
at least the same
WWE
spectacle
does.
crowd
Yeah.
that
I
the
look at it
WWE or the
differently.
Grammys or the Oscars or whatever.
You're-
So I can't separate it from my feelings about the secret.
I mean, for
Friendly
me,
Church.
I get
You know what I
get
mean?
that. No, I totally understand. I totally understand that. What I meant to say and what I'm trying to get to is like I'm not bringing this up to like bag on the seeker-friendly church. That's not my intention. That I think we kind of all agree on that. Whatever. I'm trying to actually maybe reach a different solution and have a different conversation about what should our ideal be. Like, what should we do? That's kind of where I'm trying to go, and where my own thoughts.
I think it goes back to what I originally said: is if it's not distracting from the main purpose of what the church is, and what we're there for is the teaching of the saints, then everything else is not spectacle. It's just the aesthetic of it. And you see what I'm saying? I think we a lot of times we go so far to either side of, you got like some churches that won't even have musical instruments because they think it's a sin, all the way to people that have 50 million people up on stage playing an instrument. I mean, it's one of these. It's hard to find balance, and each individual church body is different, for what they need. But at the same time, I don't think we can just throw the baby out with the bathwater with saying this. If a smoke machine and lasers is what your church needs, and that's what God's calling you to have, then
Okay, let me give you two examples. Interesting examples. So, you guys have heard of Chuck Smith. Mm-hmm. You heard of Chuck Smith Jr.? Mm-mm. Okay, so that's
the guy's son.
Obviously his son.
Nailed it.
Chuck Smith Jr. started a Calvary Chapel. And it was a big Calvary Chapel.
Did you bury the lead on that? Is Chuck Smith Jr. the Chuck Smith that I'm thinking of?
Yeah. This is Chuck Smith's son. Chuck Smith's son is Chuck Smith Jr., who started a Calvary Chapel.
Started a Calvary Chapel.
Yes. Chuck Smith Jr. spoke at his father's funeral and killed it.
I thought that the way that you phrased that, the start of this conversation, was Chuck Smith and Chuck Smith Jr. Chuck Smith Jr. started Calvary Chapel.
No.
No,
So
he started a Calvary
he started
Chapel.
a Calvary Chapel, a different Calvary Chapel. I forget what town it was. It was in Southern California. And again, Chuck Smith Jr. kind of fell off the rails. I got some stories to that. I'm not endorsing Chuck. He's not even in the ministry anymore. I think he retired. But I did go to his church once when I was a teenager. My dad, when we were in California, we went. And there was the emergent church movement. That was a thing. But this was like a decade before that. It was like mid-90s. And Chuck Smith Jr. was doing things that nobody had done before. And I remember distinctly 3 things that I had never seen before. And I'm a teenager. First, their stage was in the middle of the auditorium.
It was in the round?
Everybody was around it. It was in the center, which was totally weird. And then they started where worship would be, it was dark, with lights. But then with certain songs, they had skylights that would open up and let natural light in. Like they used natural light as its own aesthetic, which was super cool. Like I'd never seen that before. And then they would have during the worship set on stage in various places, they would have somebody doing pottery or someone painting, their expression of their worship to the Lord. Like it was weird. It was weird. I'm not condoning any of it. But what it was unlike anything you ever seen. You didn't see the world doing any of that. Like you saw actual creativity. You saw ingenuity. You saw pushing some of the envelope. Now, sadly, his theology also went to push the envelope and he became a heretic. But like the aesthetic of what they were like, you weren't going to go see U2 play and it be like, oh, well, that's just, they're trying to copy something. They were like actually using like a creative bent. And when you do art, like some things work, some things don't. Like you kind of ebb and flow. Not every church is going to be able to have like robotic skylights that open up. It was its own thing. But it was different. Second illustration. So in the early 2000s, you had one of the most progressive tech revolutions ever. From what Apple was doing with MP3s, podcasting, video podcasting, on and on and on. Like there was a lot of things changed in a hurry. Like we went from cassette tapes to CDs, and then CDs and DVDs very quickly became obsolete. Fast. in Blu-ray had a moment and then was gone. Like, you know, you can track that with the blockbuster rise and fall and study Netflix and how they survived. But in the middle of all that is you had a guy pastoring a church in Seattle, which is a super tech area. It's Microsoft. And he had a ton of tech people coming to his church. His name's Mark Driscoll. Better for worse, whatever. I don't want to get into that. But what's interesting is if you study the history, he was one of the first pastors to have MP3s on his website. Like to offer free downloaded MP3s. And then like it grew so fast that when Apple was creating the first what was it, the iPod video? The first iPod that had video content. So, you know, it's a particular screen size, and so they need content available when they release it. Because if you release it and there's no content, it falls flat. Mars Hill Church was contacted by Apple because their online presence was so trendy and big that they gave them the early specs to the video and the algorithm, the compression files, so that Mark Driscoll was one of the most downloaded video logs anywhere. But what's interesting, like the technology, like who was on the forefront? Again, whatever your opinion is of Mark Driscoll or not, who cares? But I'm just saying, like there was the church itself, and for better for worse, that's a whole nother conversation. What was good or bad?
Is it though? Is it a different conversation?
No,
because
that's a different conversation. That's not what I'm wanting to introduce. I know where you're going because you've listened to the same thing I have. I'm not trying to go there.
I don't want to just go on Mark Driscoll though.
Yeah,
like
I'm using him as an example.
No, that's not what I'm going to say.
Of being creative and artistic and pushing the envelope in areas where why not have the world try to catch up with the church?
Because this is what I'm going to say. I don't necessarily think that pushing the envelope is a great idea. You've mentioned two.
Oh, I was just saying the whole church. The church historically has always pushed the envelope artistically.
You mentioned two pastors who were pushing the envelope, both of whom have major issues.
For sure.
Then you have, and like you go back to the people who built like the guy who painted the Sistine Chapel. It was one of the Ninja Turtles. I don't remember.
Michelangelo did the Sistine Chapel.
Not a Christian. The guy who made.
Do you know him? How do you know he's not a Christian?
Like 60%.
That's not a strong percentage to just condemn the guy to hell.
I'm not condemning the guy to hell.
Don't go too far. You don't know him.
I'm just saying that a lot of like the medieval artists were not Christians. They worked for the church, but they were not themselves Christians.
I get that. And again, this is an open conversation.
Like I don't know if I think that it is important for a church, like a small C church, to find an aesthetic that works for them and works for their people, like we have with 316. I do not think that progress for progress sake is a good idea.
I agree with you. I think that's a very good...
Like that idea of trying to push forward. I think that's actually how a lot of the seeker-friendly churches got to where they are.
And
you know
emergent, and the whole emergent movement was based on that. Like let's be progressive or trendy for trendy's sake. Ironically, they were just copying the world too.
Right, because nothing is new under the sun. Like,
nice Solomon reference.
Back then, churches were major economic powerhouses.
They are today.
Not the way that they were. I agree with you.
The Roman Catholic Church still owns a lot of land.
Well,
like that.
I know the broader idea that you're presenting. I understand.
It was a large structure,
for sure.
And now it's very fractured. Not saying that churches don't have, a lot of money. Some churches have more.
Not ours.
Well, yeah. We might have the moon, the lighting thing there on the roof, but that plays a huge role in it. If you look at the United States government, for example, when it was founded, there was a separation of church and state. And so I think there was probably a reason for that, because in the days of those churches that were built, the church was the state. And so a lot of money that was where the money was funneled. And so they were able to, over the lifetimes of men, build these fantastic structures.
Right. No, that's fair. Let me say it this way and see if this resonates. Because again, we're free flow consciousness working on an idea that I had on the treadmill watching a TV across the room. So let's be real.
Also, you started this conversation by saying not to make this a whole deal.
Well, that's true. Real quick, do we have any comments online? Like, you need to be more aggressive on interjecting when they arise.
You know me, I'm very aggressive. We do have a few. Your wife says...
My wife?
Yes.
What?
I know. I thought it was crazy too.
What?
She said, yes, there's
the
something
great
pretty
artist,
special.
Jessica Adams, who wrote a book that you can find on Amazon.
Hold on, start over.
An Amazon? Go for it again.
I believe it's a Christmas book, so you can go ahead and get one of those.
It's on Amazon. It's on Amazon Christmas.
Yeah, an Amazon Christmas.
Thanks,
Yes,
Justin.
that
Appreciate
author
that. Yeah.
says that there is something pretty special about our warehouse we do church in, which is true. We have a great vibe, and it is a warehouse. And then Justin's second favorite, Karen, says hello, and that she believes the the cathedral you were referencing is St. Basil's in Moscow.
Yeah.
She follows some of the same accounts I do on X, so
Yes,
probably
she would
she's
be
right.
the person to know.
Yes, for sure.
She also says that even Stalin wouldn't touch it or the Tsar's church and the Kremlin, which is interesting. That even Stalin left them alone, and he was not a pious man.
So here's this. I think this is kind of where I'm trying to go. I think it's comical. You look at WWE and the aesthetic, you're like, well, that's the best the church is doing. Like, churches with the most money and they can do whatever they want to do. The best they're doing is WWE.
So
For all the reasons, whatever. And to me, my thought was, man, we worship and serve and follow the God of the universe, the most creative being in existence, with the ingenuity that hung stars in the sky and created the most wildest animals you could ever see, or landscapes like that made the sunrise and the sunset. And then you look at what happens in heaven, and it's like, it blows your mind. And it's like, this is the God we follow, who said, I created you in my image and likeness. And then when it comes to like the worship of him in the Old Testament, he's like, boom. I'll get very specific. You use these stones and this fabric, and this is how you do it. And it's gold, and this is the wood I want. Like, he gets so specific. And like, there's such a creative bent to it, and he wants the choice artisans, and it's not even just like, hey, worship me. He's kind of clear, like, no, you're gonna get the best musicians to be out front doing this. Like, he's so particular, and my only point is, like, I love being modern. I love pushing it. There's so much, but it's like, let's get rid of. This is how the world does it, and let's try to rethink things.
So do you think
it's like, hey, let's be creative, let's do something different. Worship, the music. Well, we can do music that resonates artistically to the popular culture. I've read a book, I just finished it, by Rick Rubin, who's produced everybody, Run DMC to. I mean, you go down the gamut.
Run DMC's System of a Down.
To a System of Down, to Wallflowers by whatever his name is. Like, he's done everybody. And he wrote a book about creativity. And one of his big things to artists is, like, don't care what people want to hear, because that's not your job. Your job is to introduce to the ear what they don't know they want. Like, don't ever produce, don't ever write, don't ever orchestrate. Like, oh, someone will love this. You do what you love, because the true artist is always creating a new standard of what people don't know what they want till they hear it.
So do you
and
think
my real quick, I'm not dodging, but my point is that, like, as church, instead of like looking at like what works in the world and trying to copy it, And maybe there's some elements that you implement. Like, it is what it is. Like, but maybe we should just take a step back and, like, let's be different. And, like, and that's why I brought up Chuck Jr. and Mark Driscoll. Not in the sense of, like, promoting either of them, because, again, they're both maniacs. But at least they were daring enough to, like, let's do something different. Let's try something creative. Let's not emulate because we know that'll be successful. But let's try to let the image and likeness as a light bearer of God manifest in something different. Again, I think Calvary 316, the aesthetic of our church, does that. There's no other church that you're going to walk into that's like ours. That's true. Now, you're going to walk into some churches and they're probably cooler and they've spent more money and they got more technology. But, like, we've taken what we have, and we've again, like you were saying, Creighton, we've tailored it to our people and what we're trying to do. But we've done something different. Not for different sake, but we're not copying someone. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's my point. Like I watch this WWE production, and it was just eerie how, well, that's kind of like the most, quote, creative churches. That's the same thing. And you listen to the music, like, again, we play Bethel and Hillsong and Jesus Culture. We play them all, and that's great. And there's some wonderful songs. Like, the songwriting's fantastic. But I will say, like, as far as the creativity of the music itself, it's not. It is pretty cookie cutter. It's the same chords repeated, same structures. Like, there's not much that you listen to and you're like, well, that was, hey, lyrically, this is wonderful. It's beautiful. But like, are we taking any risks musically? It's one of the things I love about Andy, I'll be honest, and Andy's one of our worship leaders, been our worship leader since the beginning. And Matthew Jinks, who's played with worship bands all over the place. One of the reasons he loves to play with Andy and me is it's like, there's nothing else like this around. Anywhere. Yeah. There's no worship that's like that musically, period. And to me, it's like, okay, I think there's a balance, which is why we have Aaron and Aaron and Ashton, although I think very creative, and we're kind of like Jimmy World Worship, which is different. There's a balance to it all, but I'm just saying, like I don't know. I just was inspired today by, hey, let's maybe get bigger in the way that we think about things, and the way that we imagine things, and the way that we take risks with things. Creighton, you know this, like, as a youth pastor, I was vlogging before that was a thing. Like the 66, I was releasing
vlogging. Hold on.
I was releasing 7 videos a week. You remember?
Yes, I remember.
And then, like, nobody ever watched it or cared or could even get to it, but, like, it was like, wow, this is kind of like, we've been podcasting forever.
I mean, I am absolutely on board with the idea of, I will go to Justin in a second. Yeah. I'm absolutely on board with the idea of being...
You're not very creative to begin with.
I am not a very creative person.
I get that.
But I am on board with the idea of stretching what you have to test your limits, to be, like, the idea of being more. Like, for instance, I think like 4, maybe 5 years ago, a friend of mine came to me and was like, I'm thinking about doing this show. And I was like, that's going to be weird. And here we are 4 years later, and I love it, and it's great. Like, I love the idea of doing new things, trying things. I'm not trying to say that any progress is bad. And
no,
in fact,
there is progress that's bad. That's not what I'm saying.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But I'm on board with the idea of like, hey, let's do our own thing, because I agree. I think the thing that hit home with me was the worship music talk. CCM, like contemporary Christian music, has sounded the same for the last 20 years, 25 years. It's all just like whatever more poppy Taylor Swift is. It's like just on that side of pop. If I didn't know the lyrics, I would have a hard time separating them as someone who doesn't listen to pop music. Like, I get that. I'm on board with the idea of let's go back to hymns. Let's do something that people don't do. I'm on board with that.
We could not go back to hymns, but still do something different.
That's
I'm
true.
on board with
for
that.
sure. Yeah.
Cool.
Justin, you've been kind of chomping at the bit over there.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm trying to figure out how to formulate it in the way that makes sense, because I'm not an artistic person. I color outside the lines most times.
Which maybe makes you very artistic.
Right. I don't know.
Arguably.
Autistic.
Right. So I guess the main question I have is, God gives us gifts. Some are artists, some are this, some are that, At what point does the showiness of stuff, like, when do you say this is a movement of God? And I think I guess, where does the Spirit come into play with this? Because that seems to be the main catalyst for the creativity in the church. That these great churches in Europe and these movements of God is the Spirit moved people, and it might have just started out with something small and almost seemingly stupid, but the Spirit was moving and it turned into something bigger. So where does that come into play?
So that's great. That's a wonderful setup. So next week, we're gonna have a guest. We're gonna do an interview next week with a guest. His name's Ed McTaggart, and Ed was the original drummer for an early Christian band known as Daniel Amos. He was the original drummer, still their drummer. He's been with them for 4 decades. Ed McTaggart was in the famous Tent with Pastor Chuck back in the day. If you see the Jesus Revolution movie and they're in the tent, they showcase Love Song, but Daniel Amos was right there with them all. And he can speak to like that early, like your question, because he's the musician. So Ed's going to be with us next week, and we're going to do an episode and kind of interview, hear his story. I think that's a great question to ask someone like Ed, because to me the big question would be, what made the early manifestations of Christian music unique and different, special? Like, was it just a copycat of what was going on in the world?
Right, and that's
Is it
where
Crosby,
I'm getting
Stills, and Nash, but it's just Christian?
and that's where I'm getting at. Even if a church has a WWE feel, but it's moving by the Spirit.
Oh yeah,
Right. I mean, you see, like Hulk Hogan just got baptized, and like he's been pretty outspoken lately since then about his faith. I mean, you see this, and I think that's the main indicator for me of I don't care how cheesy or how mainstream it is. If it's an obvious move of God, then it's a move of God, and the Spirit's there.
We've kind of talked about that in terms of Harvest Ministries, because like I'm totally on board with that as a, like, how do we put it when we were talking about Harvest Ministries, is like if you want to be the evangelist, go and lead people to God and then send them to churches in their area.
It's like I'd have no problems at all with Passion Church, Louis Giglio, if they just removed church and just like, hey, we're an evangelical outreach. Our whole purpose is to get people saved, but that doesn't make us a church. And then we want to pivot you into church. Like, I would have so much respect for that.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess trying to resolve this. Before I resolve this, nobody knows this. So February 4th, Sunday, February 4th. Oh, you'll actually know. So remember when we were in this past May, when you and Nick went with me to Kansas City, and I taught the men's conference. That was the first time I had shared my testimony. You guys went to make sure that
you could open doors and whatnot.
that I could get luggage out of overhead containers, and I killed you both with my snoring.
Oh my good God!
Yeah, it was a one night of. You remember Paul Clark that night?
Yes, white hair guitar player.
What was your thoughts?
He was great.
He was awesome, and he is a pioneer of Christian music. Played with Phil Keaggy, played with everybody. And he did that song that sounded like Leonard Cohen.
Yes.
That was awesome. So remember we were hanging out, and I told him, I was like, hey, anytime you're coming through town, holler at me. So February 4th, Paul Clark is coming through town. We're going to do worship like normal, but then Paul and I are going to do a Q&A and talk about the Jesus movement, talk about the early days. He's going to have his guitar with him and play some songs throughout it. Songs that kind of reflect the time. We're going to do a totally different type of service. We're not going to have a normal Bible study.
Oh boy.
But Paul's going to be with us. This happened today, literally today. I talked to him, and we're going to do it, which I think will be super cool. There's a lot of interest. This year, Love Song, which is one of the original pioneers of Christian music. There's a whole documentary coming out about them. But Paul was right in the middle of all of it, and we're going to do a cool thing.
Oh, that's exciting. I liked him.
Oh, that song.
Yes.
Sharpen the Axe was the name of the song.
Yes.
Was pretty sweet.
And that is not an allegory. Or
It
a
was-
metaphor.
Both, but there you go. Now, Isaac, but you want to talk about a guy that's doing something creative, like, So, wrapping this up, any other comments on the interwebs?
We have one from Jeff. It says, and this echoes Justin's sentiment, which is different styles of church appeal to different people and different depths of sanctification. If theatrics open someone's heart to hear a shallow water faith to later be called into a deeper water faith, elsewhere, I don't see an issue with it. Each serve a purpose for where God has them in that moment. Which I agree, and it kind of goes back to how we were talking about Harvest Ministries and Louis Giglio.
But so what I would say, Jeff, do we have a last name? Just got.
I have a last name, and we don't generally use last names.
You have an initial? I'm kind of curious.
G.
Okay, I don't know.
He goes to our church. You would know his last name if you heard it.
So this would be my. I'm not knocking that at all. My uncle pastors one of these churches, and it's huge. But like the template for this has been Willow Creek. Historically, Willow Creek in Chicago was the Bill Hybel. It was the poster. It was the original seeker-friendly church. It was the largest church in America for years, and that was the whole model. And then they did a study on the effectiveness of the model, and they discovered that it failed. That, yes, they might have gotten people saved, but what Jeff is alluding to, like, well, then they can then go somewhere to grow, doesn't actually happen. There's a particular power to the message of the gospel, and what are you getting from the gospel? And what again, seeker-friendly churches, what they're presenting is not really the gospel, because they don't talk about sin. They don't talk about repentance. They don't talk about like accepting that who I am is not good, like that I need to change. It's a watered down version. It's a version of the gospel of I come to Jesus for what I can get, whether it's a golden ticket or a better life or life more abundantly. But it's not about I'm broken. I need transformation. I'm not okay who I am. I need to be somebody different. So what happens is because they're not really getting the gospel, they're converting to an anti-gospel. So they're accepting it. And then what happens is that in the course of time, they come to realize like, well, wait a second. Now you're saying I need to change, but I didn't sign up for that. Like that was not what I was sold on. And again, Willow Creek, they like, it doesn't work. Because again, what are you actually selling? If you're not presenting the truth, the cold truth, then what are people converting to? They're converting to a humanist presentation of the gospel, which is not a gospel at all. And that's the danger. Which is why you see, like, let's set aside seeker friendly. That's why you have a problem with crusades. Mm-hmm. Like, for all the good that Billy Graham did, or Greg Laurie did, or like Billy Sunday, even before that, like, big crusades, it's like what gospel is really being given, and that becomes very great conversion rates, but what happens?
They never follow through.
Are they really conversion rates? So, that's where it's I think it becomes a little more problematic. Again, to address Jeff's question. We're already long. I want to give Spice Daddy, Football Mom, you guys
Thank you.
any final thoughts?
Again, I think it boils down to the movement of God, His Spirit. If it's on a WWE match, it's on WWE match. If it's on a acapella only kind of worship service, and that's where
Gaither
God
vocal
is.
band versus what was the Christian group that tore like phone books in half?
Oh, the power team?
Power Team.
Power team.
Versus the Gaither vocal band.
Right. I mean, basically that's a good example. Like I think.
Remember was it MTV or VH1 that did the celebrity grunge matches? Remember
Yeah.
the claymation
Yes.
figures that fought?
Pretty sure that.
I want to
Celebrity deathmatch.
I want to see someone come up with a Power Team versus Gaither vocal
I
celebrity
think
grunge match.
I think that's what it boils down to for me. Is if there's an obvious movement of the Spirit, then who am I to say it's one thing or another?
Yeah. No,
I'm with that.
yeah, for sure.
When I think about the Bible, it's not.
When you think about the
when
Bible,
I think about
what an opening.
It's going to be.
When I think about God, love, the dove, and the Bible.
It's not a particularly flashy book. A lot of the covers are black or maybe dark red. There's no.
Listen, it's gold leaf,
Not
and
mine.
they're red letters where Jesus talks.
So
How many books you have with red letters for one of the characters?
yeah, gosh,
Like
not
4
many.
total. In the
Honestly, you're not
5
reading your
for
Bible like
Revelation.
me out of a scroll, so that's your problem.
That is a problem. Yeah,
Parchment.
but it's a medium. It's what's in the Bible that matters. Obviously, you've got hundreds of books here, but none of them hold a candle to the Bible and its importance because of the contents of what it says, which is what makes our church special in that you go verse by verse. But, I don't think it's bad that these other books maybe write like the Bible or, have a similar appearance as the Bible. It's about, the contents of what's in it. Is it changing people's lives? So, I don't think that there's necessarily a right way. There's definitely a wrong way, but I don't know that there's a right way. I think as long as you're aligning yourself with the Bible, and honestly, this is just my last point here. God specified exactly what He wanted His worship room.
Yeah, the tabernacle. Yeah.
And was that is that not applicable in the New Testament? What's going on there?
So we're the temple of the living God, and there seems to be freedom in regards to the expression of it.
Okay.
That's a good question, which I know today was supposed to be one of your questions. So
That was not my question.
you can
but,
you can file that back. But I actually want, and again, kind of in closing, real quick, Creighton, you got anything? Because I'm going to ask Isaac something here before.
I do not, but I do want to say that I like that question, Isaac. You should file that one away. We should use that later.
Sure.
So you want to sign out real quick, because I'm going to bounce after I talk to Isaac. Creighton.
Sure. I guess that's what I'm doing. Is I'm signing out right now. Okay. Yeah. Bye, guys.
Yeah, it's a new thing we're doing. It's Creighton signing out. So Isaac, I will say, you are intrinsically a creative person. Like I would say you're creative.
Mm-hmm.
You're a drummer. You play electric guitar by ear. You make chocolate on your free time out of natural honey. You like to, like there is an artistic. Maybe you're left hemisphere dominant or not. I mean,
I am left-handed.
What he's saying
You're-
is you should make chocolate for Jesus.
he does. He brings it
left-handed?
here, for Jesus. But my point is that you are, you're what I would define as a creative person. I think you think creatively. Like even back to like and again, not to get into it, but like the crazy Bitcoin story that you shared a few nights ago hanging out. Like you like to think outside of the box of convention. And I guess what I'm trying to say and what I'm actually kind of hoping resonates is I want this to the whole conversation to be a challenge to creative people of like I don't want to emulate the world in my expression of what the Lord's done for me. Like I want to do something different. I want whatever that is to be natural and to flow forth. But like, I don't want to just do what everyone else does because it's popular or it's successful. Like there's something about God using creative people to be creative because he's the creator, right? Like, does that make sense? I guess I'm just trying to kind of ping you there.
No, absolutely. I mean, I do enjoy the creative process. I think that in our own right, each of us, you know, is a creator in some sense. And I just want to shoot the challenge right back at you.
Yeah.
You know, Saturday mornings.
Oh, good grief. Yeah, no, I'm not showing up at the church at 7 a.m. to play music with you knuckleheads. I'm not, I say that. I play bass like nobody plays bass because I don't listen to anybody play bass.
And because your fingers don't work.
Hey.
Hey, I saw the opportunity.
What are you talking about?
Look at that.
Look at those.
I
Look
thought
at
you were
those
supposed
things
to be
moving.
signing out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to get out of here. That means that Justin has to pee.
No, I was
Just
trying
so
to get-
everybody knows, like there are.
No, I went before, so I'm good.
We do need to sign out now.
We do.
No, I
we
was saying
do.
Creighton already signed out. What's he doing talking to me?
That's true. No.
That's what I was
So
getting
you
at.
sign out, Spice Daddy.
I was going to sign out like, bye.
That was epic.
I told you I'm not a creative person.
Football mom.
It's been a real pleasure, and I
All right, enough
see
of
you
that.
guys. Goodbye.
Yeah, enough of that. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I hope you were edified by the conversation. It went a little bit in a different direction, which I think is something fresh about the show is that we really try not to stay in a box. And we're just brothers talking about the Lord. Talking about,
boxes.
yeah,
mothers.
your mic's not even close to your face, Craig.
talking about
Yeah. So anyway, again, thank you for joining us. If you're watching YouTube or Facebook, check out the podcast. If you're listening, check out the live stream on Wednesday nights. And don't forget that next Wednesday, Ed McTaggart will be with us from Daniel Amos Band. And we're going to have a wonderful conversation about the Jesus movement. So God bless. See you guys next week.